What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs, cats, hamsters, guinea pigs, gerbils? I can name the whole phylum, the whole chordata, if that is what you prefer. But we are back with another episode of the Schoch Factor Podcast. And this one is a fun one. This is our bi weekly Rooney reports, where each week me and Coach Rooney will get on here and tell one midweek story from our college baseball days. It could be a good one, could be a bad one. In this instance, it's probably the worst outing I've ever had in my life that I'll talk about. But then we will get into midweek games that caught our attention. Coach Rooney, you are joining us here tonight. How are you doing tonight?
Steven, I'm wonderful. It's good to see you again. I like that we've got this midweek madness thing scheduled out. This is good. I also like that you jumped right in with words like phylum and chordata. I've learned about the Phillips curve, if I'm not messing that up, from Stephen Schoch. Now chordata. We had on the other D1 podcast, Fitzy, our good friend Aaron Fitz, chucking around words like cromulent. So yeah, like my verbal score in the SCT would have been much better if there were podcasts back then.
No, I love to hear that. I am surprised, but also elated to hear I have contributed to your vocabulary, your knowledge. Phylum chordata, I don't even know if I use that one right. I believe it's animals with a vertebrae, but who's going to fact check that? Who's taking the time,
Not I. I will not be fact checking that. Well played, Stephen. I thought it was very smooth. You were in character. It was well done.
It's all about the confidence you say it with. And speaking of talking with confidence, I want to go in and thank our first sponsor, Soldier Sports. Because, Coach Rooney, have you heard of the 2025 Soldier Tank BB Core baseball bat by Soldier Sports?
I'd like to hear more about it, please.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because this just isn't any bat. It is lighter and hotter than any of its predecessors, thanks to its infused power alloy technology that creates an ultra big, ultra hot sweet spot. Crafted from over 2.5 years of research and development, the Soldier Tank is the perfect blend of speed and power. Designed for both power and contact hitters, it features an extreme formula for success, where speed times mass times impact, not divided by power, equals extreme power. I've seen it swung. Even the mishits have juice. The bat is priced at an incredible $311, which is well worth it to swing the top scoring BB Core bat ever. They are selling out fast though, so head over to soldiersports.us to secure yours today. You can also get a leopard print tracksuit while you are there. I highly recommend you check it out. That's not even part of what they're paying me to say. That's the fun of it. It is just an elite tracksuit.
Stephen, you walk out of an online purchase or an in-store purchase with this level, this caliber of bat and a leopard skin tracksuit. I mean, you have won the day. That is an absolute win.
I'm taking care of all my weekly essentials. Getting the bat, getting the tracksuit in one trip to the store. I mean, you cannot beat that. It is phenomenal. But Coach Rooney talking about, a little bit of madness, a little bit of chaos at the store, going down the bat aisle, going down the tracksuit aisle. Of course, all these crazy concepts bouncing around. That can mean one thing. Midweek college baseball has happened this week. And Coach Rooney, I need to know about maybe an origin story, maybe a little bit about yourself. What is your favorite or just a midweek memory that comes to mind when you're thinking midweek college baseball?
Yeah, I think you're where the road you're going down, Stephen, is so spot on that midweek games are just craziness. I mean, it's, at the best, you're getting a fourth pitcher versus a fourth pitcher. And, it's a chance some younger guys play. There's just a lot going on. Now, it can be very impactful. Like last year, NC State went 10-2 in midweek games. They play all these really good teams in the Carolinas. I mean, basically every team in the Carolinas is ranked currently. And so, they made a lot of hay in the midweek. But my origin story, I'm going to take you back to the year 2001. And I'm coaching at Arizona State, and the beloved Sun Devils, we had weather to start the year, and which is really unusual for us. So we're scrambling for games to get to our 56 games, and we're going to play Oklahoma at the Bricktown Ballpark, which is their AAA park in Oklahoma City. It's awesome. It was always an awesome trip. And I had the idea that I pitched Coach Murphy on, now the manager of the Brewers, that we should play Oral Roberts while we're up there. They're they want to play us, that we talk to them all the time. And so we'd have to play them on the road. But Coach Murphy's like, all right, let's do it. And so, it's a Tuesday game. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma. Lo and behold, Oral Roberts has like 3,000 fans in the stands. And it's like all the students, and they're getting after us. And their pitcher that night, now this is when Sonny Galloway was the coach of Oral Roberts. Rob Walton is their pitching coach. They were in the Mid-Continent Conference. The Summit League didn't even exist yet. So they were just kind of getting to that point where they're going to a regional every year. So God knows who we're throwing. It's Tuesday night. We've been playing all these games. Their pitcher is a kid named Michael Rogers. I'll never forget. Michael Rogers won 14 games that year, Stephen. 14 games. So why, you ask, would he be pitching on a Tuesday night versus the Sun Devils? Because they would not throw him in their league games. He won 14 games. Michael Rogers was an All-American, did not get all Mid-Continent Conference because Sonny Galloway purposely threw him on Tuesdays when they were playing us and Oklahoma State and all the, the bigger name schools. And Michael Rogers in the first inning is 91-93 with a slider from Hades. And Coach Murphy is looking at me like, you may not be employed at the end of this game. Like your coaching career may end in the next 9 innings. This dude carved us up. It was a close game because we pitched pretty well that night too. But that's the type of shenanigans you can get on a Tuesday night. They're throwing their number 1. You're throwing your number 4. And may the force be with you. The Sun Devils were on the wrong end of that one.
No, that is rough. You never want to face the midweek ace. And everybody talks about it like in the fall, the one guy who's trying too hard. Everybody calls him the Fall American. And, they good shame him a little bit. But midweek games where you walk into it, that's the thing about being one of these big name schools is midweek games. It's essentially hunting ground for the grit factories. It's okay, I'm getting the opportunity to play on the national stage. And, with streaming, you get more opportunities on the national stage. But of course, when you're playing these bigger games, you think, okay, we win here, we get way more attention. You bringing up Michael Rogers opened up a blast from the past because the gentleman who pitched at North Carolina State named Michael Rogers was the guy who actually recruited me at App State. So
nice.
Different guy, different Michael Rogers. But I was going to say that is way too good. It would have worked out too well for our first podcast back together that both of our midweek stories would have a connection like that, because that would be too rare, too random.
I love it. Very good. So what do you got, Stephen? Give us your midweek story. What do you got for us?
So this was probably my least fun I've ever had on a baseball field.
Oh no.
And it came my freshman year when the App State Mountaineers were taking on the North Carolina A&T Aggies, I believe they were. And on our way down, we're playing at a very historic, it's the historic War Memorial Stadium in Greensboro, North Carolina. Very cool place. Lots of history there. Lots of old teams have played there. And I love being a fan looking around. And so we get to the field and I'm looking around, just enjoying it, enjoying the old scenery. There's parts of it that are very dusty, very rundown, very old. But as a baseball purist, I love that stuff. Like I love the urinal in the dugout with no door. Why is that there? just pissing with the boys, that's the fun of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if War Memorial Stadium has one of those, but either way, I would know if I wasn't thrown into this situation where as I'm walking around looking at the stadium with my pitcher friends, our pitching coach asks us, hey, where are the baseballs? And Coach Rooney, we had forgotten all the baseballs to play our baseball game, to warm up, to do IO. And this, of course, fell upon freshman pitchers. It was not my responsibility. My responsibility was always the extras bag. And believe it or not, the extras bag was always there. But due to
extra jerseys, that's what extras is? Jerseys?
Yeah, extra jerseys, hats, belts, elite stuff. If you didn't know about the extras bag going into it, it is a saving grace in college baseball. It saved my life multiple times. But being in charge of the extras bag as a freshman, it's a gift and a curse, because it's like, oh, I really can't forget this. But also, if I forget any of my personal stuff, extras back. But we forget the balls as a staff. Coach goes, you know what? One person forgot them, sure. But there's 15 other pitchers here who also didn't bring them. And so we had to run 15 200-yard shuttles before this game without warming up, um, just rolling right into it. And of course, this took all of the team's time to warm up. So we went in like completely dry to this game. Well, not dry because I had been covered in my own throw up, but we go into this game, and I'll never forget, Braden Gorham has one of the best outings I've ever seen out of a kid. He does great against these guys. I come in, very first pitch I throw is to this gentleman by the name of Donovan Hope, spelled Dawnovan. And I remember that his name seared into my brain because I threw a slider that it looked like it was going to hit him in the left butt cheek. He's a right-handed hitter. And I live in North Carolina now, and I am still worried that at some point it is going to come down and hit me. Coach Rooney, this thing,
No.
I remember I show up to the field. I'm like, wow, they got cherry blossoms in left field. Those things are beautiful. This kid hit a rocket through the cherry blossoms, just right through them. I had no legs under me whatsoever. Just a terrible outing. Next pitch, triple off the wall. We'll see you. Yeah, so that was we somehow App State, we somehow pulled off the 7-6 victory, but that was a big fat loss in my mind. Just forever. But that's what midweeks will do to you, because you'll go in and you'll play a team where you know nothing about them. You haven't scouted them a ton like you have in conference opponents. And if you do that, they're going to pull your pants down and hit a baseball a million feet. So always take midweek games with an extra little bit of seriousness. That is my advice for y'all.
Steven, so in summary, you had to run till you got sick because one of your teammates forgot the baseballs, and then you're maybe like more on top of that. The other prize was you got to face two batters who both hit absolute laser beams off of you.
Yeah, and I remember Coach Jones came out and he goes, I was a bit of a jerk, and I didn't really care what people thought about me. And, if I was upset, I was going to let people know about it. But when Coach Jones came out to take me out of the game, he goes, man, you just don't have it today. And I go, what, my legs? I was like, look, I mean, I sprinted about a mile pregame, and that's not the best solution as to getting ready to, go in and play baseball games.
And Coach Jones being the great Billy Jones, who is an all-time favorite. Just great.
And I personally, I'd never got a hugely good read on him, but as a human being, I think that was something he liked. Like, I'm pretty sure I got him to chuckle inside, like the little internally where Coach can't show it, but they did think it was kind of funny. And as a player, those feelings rule.
Yes, that's well done. Well done by you, Stephen. Good story. That's excellent. Donovan Hope and Michael Rogers, the two stars of our story this evening.
Just taking all the hope out of Stephen Schoch freshman year's sales. But I do remember we did get Hungry Howie's pizza on the bus ride home. And I remember, just a real sad 8 slices for the kid. But we had fun, when we got back. We just forgot about it, erase it, move on,
That's the beauty of baseball. There's a game the next day. It's all good.
Now, Coach Rooney, in the spirit of moving on, we're actually going to do something and take a step back and have a little break from our sponsors. Now, of course, thank you to our great sponsors for sponsoring this podcast and allowing it to happen. I'm not certain which ads were just played, but you should check them out because they were really good products. I can't recommend them enough. Now, Coach Rooney, speaking of good products, we enjoyed some good college baseball. Both me and you have picked 3 games that really impressed us, really stood out to us. So, Coach Rooney, do you want to get us started with your first big game of the midweek?
Yes, and I want to give a disclaimer, Stephen. Like, I'm going to pick some upsets here, and I don't want to come off as if I'm always rooting against the power teams or the favorite teams, but it is unique, and we do get some cool. Even though midweek games can be, a little deceiving in the results, things can get a little nutty. We do get some cool matchups. So the first one I'm going to give you is, it actually happened last week. I want to talk about Austin Peay goes to Mississippi State and wins 2 games. They won Tuesday and Wednesday, and they're all over the internet. Austin Peay is a really fun program. They have a great tagline, "Let's go P." Who doesn't like that? They have a cool nickname, the Governors, go Govs. And, their head coach, Roland Fanning, is a really cool story. Roland's a small town Oklahoma kid, played Division II, and he was, rose the ranks as an assistant coach. He had become the recruiting coordinator at Kentucky. And then, as coaching careers can happen, he ends up not in an on the field position at Oklahoma State, which was kind of his roots. And so, Roland is fighting his way back into the mix in coaching. And of course, if you're at Oklahoma State, that's a good place to kind of reset yourself. And so Nicholls State gives Roland an opportunity to be a head coach, which I thought was really cool. And it was really, I thought it was a great job by that administration to not get caught up in, career trajectory and all that. You can get really yourself twisted up in hiring process. Roland is high energy. He's a good baseball guy. And I think he's perfect for that program. And of course, he's been doing great work there. They've got all these transfer guys that maybe have not gotten a chance to be a full-time player at other programs. They're all in on the uniform game. You can find Roland with the 2-liter Mountain Dew. Some of their players, like they've got a kid, Lyle Miller Green, who's a two-way player who has been at George Mason and Oklahoma State, and he's an absolute stud. Their shortstop, I'm going to mispronounce it, Gazdar, John Gazdar. He's 19 for 38 this year. John Bay, another kid that was at Oklahoma State, he's got 12 extra base hits already. He's hitting 486. So just really cool. It's a cool program, easy to root for. It's kind of like, I hope this doesn't sound critical of them, but it's like the island of misfit toys. Like these are kids that are good players that just haven't gotten the opportunities or the right opportunities at other places, and they've come to Austin Peay. And that includes Coach Fanning, and I love the vibe of this program. And for them to go to Mississippi State and win a Tuesday and a Wednesday game is incredible. And the Wednesday game was a big comeback. So really cool for them. I find Austin Peay to be super easy to root for.
Yeah, I think the island of misfit toys, one, I think that is a great way to describe them. But two, I think that is something where if you told Coach Fanning that comparison, he would be all about it. He would 100% be all for it. I remember I was walking around the College World Series last year when Oral Roberts was playing. I don't know if his brother coaches at Oral Roberts.
He
or
does.
what
His brother's an
connection he
assistant
has.
coach. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember I ran into him and he was just like, yeah, Oral Roberts is here. I'm not going to miss that. What are they doing here? That's sick. But he was just so fired up and like that energy was palpable. It's like, that's the type of dude you want to play for,
100%. Yeah. And Roland is, again, this is a great person. Like he never lost that dream of being a Division I head coach, and good for him. He's done such a great job, him and that staff. And yeah, they're going to be very fun to root for. They have great uniforms too, Stephen, by the way. Like the Govs really look good.
I love their little logo of the guy with it. Does he have a curly Q mustache?
I think he's like, it looks like the Monopoly character. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'm not completely getting the two mixed up because I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure. Don't want to assume about
You're on
Austin Peay. I don't want to incorrectly pee. That's just the last thing I want to
do. Don't do that. Yeah. Not unless you're at War Memorial Stadium, you can just pee in the dugout, apparently.
Yeah, just right there. Maybe if I'm right. But the one midweek game I want to hop right into was ECU versus ODU, because I feel like these two teams, it's not talked about geographically how close these two teams are to one another. Like I think in rivalries, having teams that are close to each other is a really big part of that rivalry, because you're recruiting a lot of the same kids, you're recruiting a lot of the same players. And this matchup between ODU and ECU did not disappoint whatsoever. It started off with a Jacob Jenkins-Cowart 3-run home run, which we're always excited for those. And then ODU they had a 2-run home run in the bottom of the first, which was really cool. And then Stephen Meir for ODU just absolutely took control of this game. In the third inning, he hit a solo home run, and the boys are fired up. Now the score is 4-3 after this solo home run. Luke Waters will single in the left field and score a run. Luke Waters is very important to mention because his dad coaches at Del Mar High School back in Delaware, and the Cape Henlopen Vikings probably have a game against them soon. So that's very exciting. Love seeing the Delaware connections, play out in the college level. So, always rooting for that guy. And then in the bottom of the ninth, we have a 5-5 game because Jacob Starling had an RBI double in the top of the 8th for ECU. Stephen Meir is up once again, and I hope I'm saying that right. It's Meier. Meir sounds right. There was no audio on the broadcast, but he hits a homer to left field, and it is just absolutely electric because, the two teams, these are two programs where I feel like both of them kind of go at it in terms of chirping and in terms of like the want is there. And the one comes through in different ways, but I feel like these two teams were probably at each other's necks the whole game. And so to have it end in a walk-off or just a close game in general, I'm very excited about that. But a walk-off home run is, win, lose, or draw, whoever's playing, I am always rooting for a walk-off home run to happen.
I love that. I'm going to look up that kid's name while we're talking, Stephen. Stephen, speaking of pronunciations, I like the Delaware sidebar here. How do you pronounce the city? And I'm going to just say it the way I say it. I want to be corrected if I'm wrong. How do you say Newark, Delaware?
Oh, I just say Newark.
Do you really? You lose the W?
I don't know if that's right. There's a few words where I just give up. Absolutely. The name Clayton, Clayton, Clayton. I don't know how to say that word, Coach Rooney. I genuinely don't think I can pronounce Clayton or Clayton. Whoa.
Yeah.
See?
I think it's not, you didn't hack it up. I thought that was fine. I think I heard it today pronounced Newark. And so I just like Newark, New Jersey. Yeah. So I that
Newark,
had me confused.
That's what Noah needed. Newark.
That's right. I like it. Very good. So and one more follow-up question. So you're telling me that Norfolk, speaking of tough things to pronounce, Norfolk, Virginia is close to Greenville, North Carolina. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it's as far as people are thinking it is.
Yeah,
like I
like
think it's maybe like 2 hours at maximum.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anything beyond that.
Interesting. I like it. Okay, cool. Well, I'm in. And you're right. Two really good programs. I think that all makes perfect sense. No pronunciation guide for old DU, so that's disappointing.
Yeah, I'll put out a call. I am good
Yeah.
friends with their manager, so we'll get that. We'll get that, and we'll get that correct for you, Stephen M.
I would say Meyer would be my guess, but I think who knows?
Meyer. Now that you say Meyer, that makes so much more sense.
Well, we'll see. You don't want to. Let's not assume. All right, so Stephen, can my number 2 series? I will go the Nicholls Colonels. And speaking of questions we need answers to, is it Nicholls or Nicholls State? It used to be Sam Houston State. Now it's Sam Houston. Did Nicholls do the same thing? They were in the Tuscaloosa regional last year and had a really nice year. Their head coach, Mike Silva, apparently is really, really sharp. There was a lot of rumors of him going into the SEC as a pitching coach in the offseason. So Nicholls played Southern Miss in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is a really nice minor league park, and won 6-5 in extra innings. And so, again, I don't want to paint Nicholls as this super underdog program. Clearly, they're very good. I guess they won the Southland last year. But, beating Southern Miss is beating Southern Miss. I mean, this is a program that's making going to super regionals look like it's easy. And so that was cool. That was cool to see Nicholls. Nicholls is 8-1 right now. So they're taking that regional run last year and backing up. I think they beat LSU at LSU in a midweek game last year. So I see you, Colonels. And by the way, they don't spell G-O, Stephen, at Nicholls. It's Geaux.
Yeah, why would it be, But
Yeah.
I think Nicholls, I always respected the way they scheduled. I feel like they do a really tough job scheduling up front with always just heavy hitters. Like I remember the LSU series last year, but I feel like they do that year after year. And I just really like seeing a program that will have a coach test them early on too.
Yes, I love that. I'm with you 100%.
Now, speaking of tests early on, this is another matchup that really excited me because it's another in-state rivalry. Well, the first one wasn't an in-state rivalry, but I kind of made it out to be. And this is between the Stetson Hatters and the Florida Gators. And what I loved about this game is Stetson, they won 7-4. But what I loved about the game for the Hatters was the way that they scored their 7 runs. It wasn't, just double, get them over, get them in. It wasn't a slugfest. It was just good, clean, fundamental baseball. You know, they didn't walk. They got walked more than they walked other people, I believe. So, or it might have been dead even, but they just, you know, pieced together singles. They stole bases and they got on the right way. And so it was really exciting just to see Stetson perform the way they did. I know, you know, with Florida, we did see a home run from Luke Heyman and a home run from Ty Evans, which those are always fun to watch. So this game had a little bit of everything. But of course, it being a midweek game and it being an in-state rivalry, this game, it's going to be treated with the approach of, you know, Florida, we need to tune up. Stetson, we want to prove who we are. So it's always that, you know, they're at each other's necks. And so it was just really cool to see the Stetson Hatters pull this one off. I know late in the game, there was a lot of people talking about, oh, Brandon Neely, he just lost his command. Like, or should we be concerned? I don't think anyone has any reason to be concerned about Brandon Neely. As a pitcher, it is hard to close out baseball games. It's very hard to do it well, and it's very hard to do it consistently. The hiccups will come. I think this was just a hiccup for Brandon Neely. I think we're ready to see him get right back on track.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, that Florida has already dropped to, you know, like we all view Florida as this top 5 team that could win the national title. But they've, you know, they lost that first game to St. John's. Now they lost to Stetson. So something to keep an eye on. I think and let's call a fish a fish. When you're the big in-state school like Florida, and Stetson has some Northeast kids, but they have a bunch of Florida kids. And every one of those kids probably wanted to be a Florida Gator. And so now, if you're Florida, we used to face this at Arizona State, like an Arizona kid that we wouldn't recruit. And, you know, we'd play them and the kid would play out of his mind. He'd go 5 for 4 that game just to show us that we should have recruited him. And so that's harder than it looks. But I think it's really cool of Kevin O'Sullivan and Florida. Stetson has got a great program. They hosted a regional a few years ago. They've put a lot of money into their baseball stadium. And for Florida to go to DeLand, Florida, go play at Stetson, that's a huge deal for Stetson's program. And let's be honest, Sully at Florida does not have to do that. If Sully wanted to only play home midweek games, he could only play midweek games. And LSU does that a lot. Like, I just think it's really cool when the power teams go on the road in the midweeks. And Steve Trimper, I get to be with him over the wintertime at a coach's clinic in Jersey. He's a Jersey guy, like super hardwired Northeasterner. So really cool. Like the whole Stetson deal is awesome. And that was I watched the end of that game like you did, Steve. It was a really cool game. Well played game.
Yeah, I was all for it, you know, and like for me, it showed a lot of promise for Stetson to down the line and throughout the season, because when you're playing these in-state rivalry games and you have a lead late, it becomes a lot of pressure. That situation goes from, okay, this is a midweek game to, okay, this is a regional environment. We need to execute everything here to walk away with this win.
Yes, well said. Stephen, my third and final game is Purdue Fort Wayne played Indiana on the road and beat them. And this is really cool for a lot of reasons. One is because I think Indiana's got an Omaha caliber team, so that's a huge win. Another thing is that Doug Schreiber is the coach at Purdue Fort Wayne. Go Mastodons. I'm not sure what a mastodon is, but it sounds like some type of mythical creature. And I'll have you fill me in on that after I'm done here, Stephen. So Doug Schreiber was an assistant coach. His dad is a legend, Hall of Fame coach at LaPorte, Indiana. Go Slicers, legendary high school coach. Doug Schreiber's dad, Stephen, was such a legend in LaPorte, Indiana, that I think his name was Ron Schreiber. So Coach Schreiber, the elder statesman, when you played for the Slicers in LaPorte, Indiana, you went and got a haircut and you told the barber, give me a Schreiber, because you had to have your hair a certain way. So that's how much of a legend. So Doug Schreiber played for his dad. He was an assistant coach at Arizona State before I was there. Then Doug Schreiber became the head coach at Purdue. They hosted a regional, and now he's at Purdue Fort Wayne, which is really cool. It's a huge win. They're off to a tough start, but they're playing all these road games. I want to commend the school too. It used to be Indiana University, Purdue University at Fort Wayne. And it was like, okay, Tell me you don't want me to know the name of your school without telling me you don't want me to know that. So now, if I'm reading it correctly, they're just going with Purdue Fort Wayne, and good on you, Purdue Fort Wayne. Like the previous title was not manageable.
Yeah, I always like the schools where it's like they're essentially going to throw their GPS coordinates, longitude and latitude into the name, like the Northwestern Eastern State of Lower Manhattan. That is 2
They,
blocks north and 1
oh,
east.
Steven, they don't even have a name of a school. They just have a pin. They just give you a pin. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's
Pin
just
University.
And so I also, this is actually perfect because I Googled what a mastodon is, and it will connect us, hopefully, because a mastodon is in the phylum or the genus of species a mammoth, which is essentially a mammoth. It looks like it is a little bit shorter than a woolly mammoth, which of course I don't think they're around anymore. It's got long tusks like a savanna elephant, but pointed straight, which more dangerous in my opinion. So you don't want to run into a mastodon, especially not a Purdue Fort Wayne.
So the only mastodons on the planet Earth, what you're telling me, the only mastodons left on Earth are in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's it. No more. That's the only place you could find a mastodon on this planet.
Allegedly. I mean, I feel like there's got to be more teams with a mastodon because this thing does look like. I feel like in choosing a mascot, you do sometimes want to choose something that can do damage. Mastodon could flip a car, I think. The flip a car ability.
Bad scheduling by Indiana. You shouldn't be playing animals that are that violent.
No, especially not this early in the season when the weather is in their favor. You want them in the heat.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of animals that would thrive into the heat, I want to talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide, which, of course, that's an elephant, allegedly, taking on the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers, which they're dragons. Dragons, I've seen the movie Shrek. They can survive in heat. And this game was loaded with action. I think it was very interesting to me. It went into extra innings. And, of course, Alabama won 9-7 in the 10th. But what was interesting to me was how laid back Rob Vaughn looked the entire game, and it was one of those games where UAB is just very clearly still in the game the whole time. They were chipping back and they eventually tie it up in the bottom of the ninth. And there was no panic from Coach Vaughn. There was no panic whatsoever. It was just completely calm. And it felt like Alabama knew they were going to win the whole entire time because of the way, Coach Vaughn was kind of handling it with the decisions he was making and things like that. And then also it was really cool. Ian Petrutz kind of played hero with a really big RBI single, which he was one of those guys who played at Maryland last year, transferred to Alabama with Coach Vaughn, and to see them both having success at a new school is just really cool. It's really cool. Interesting. It's something that, if I told you 6 years ago, this kid and his coach both transferred at the same time, and he had a really big game for him, you'd be like, yeah, right. Impossible. But that's the beauty of baseball in 2024.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm with you. Alabama's off to this killer start. Alton Davis was pitching. He's cool to watch. It's going to be interesting. Alabama has been doing this over the last few years, just scorching their non-conference schedule. And then, we all know life gets more tricky in the SEC. By the way, Steven, I'm going to fact check myself. It's not Ron Schreiber. I knew it wasn't Ron Schreiber. It's the late, great Ken Schreiber of LaPorte, Indiana, Doug Schreiber's dad. Won over 1,000 games, only lost 217 games as a coach. Hey, now.
That's a pretty good record. I would not want to lose a game for him. But when you say that he had his own style of haircut, was it flat top? What style of haircut was the Schreiber?
Yeah, you couldn't have long hair in the back, and the sideburns had to be up at a certain level. And I think it had to be tight on the sides. It had to, yeah. So it was I think the best way to describe that haircut would be high speed, low drag, Steven.
Okay, that's fair. He's going for aerodynamics, which I can respect as a funk and, fun type of pitcher. I don't know if I would have thrived on Coach Schreiber's teams, but hey, power to him. It worked, clearly. I mean,
yeah. Hey, there's a lot of low slot jokers on winning teams, though, Steven. I think Coach Schreiber would have given you some leeway as a relief pitcher, it's a different animal, like a
That's
mastodon.
what as long as I can have a coach that understands the hair is part of it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know that part. I'm not sure if Coach Schreiber understood, but it was a different time, Stephen.
Well, not part of the baseball, part of this, whatever
Yes,
you want to call this, the
love
chunky
it.
and funky low slot joker. But speaking of getting chunky and funky, Coach Rooney, I could not get chunky if it weren't for grilling food because, I put food on the grill, I eat it up immediately. And now I got to tell you about one of our sponsors, Baseball Barbecue, who started when a broken grill fork and a cracked bat came together to make the perfect grill tool. Now, Baseball Barbecue makes patented bat handle barbecue tools and cutting boards that are licensed for the best teams in college baseball. Fun and functional, putting the fun in functional. The functional comes from somewhere else. That's not the barbecue, but the fun is certainly Baseball Barbecue. Their products are the perfect gift for casual fans and serious grillers alike, and a great way to put it's just a great way to out tailgate all of your rivals. Visit baseballbarbecue.com/D1baseball to find the perfect grilling gift for the college baseball fan in your life. That
Oh,
broken grill fork is gonna get me every time. I go
that was
into
well
it,
done.
broken grill, and then we get to the hyphen. Fork. You throw fork after grill, it's gone. But Baseball Barbecue, very cool stuff. You should definitely check it out. Thank you for sponsoring the Schoch Factor
Yeah,
podcast.
100%. Stephen, in fairness to you, the level of difficulty in that read is about 11 out of 10. There's some real landmines in that read, but you did a nice job. Well done.
It's the highs and lows. I appreciate that, but we are going to get on track with it. I am going to get it down at some point this season. I don't know how long into the season it's going to take me, but I promise Baseball Barbecue, I will do it.
I like it. I believe it.
Now, Coach Rooney, I would be remiss if I did not finish this podcast without mentioning some of the exceptional college baseball players that took the field this week. And I want to start off with the biggest one, of course, in Drew Burress for Georgia Tech, who just absolutely went off. He went 4 for 4 yesterday with 4 home runs, 6 RBIs. He's a leadoff hitter, I believe. So, kind of harder to bring in RBIs with your home runs when you're leading off.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's right.
and 1 hit by pitch at the end, which I understand it. He's hit 4, but he absolutely went off, and it's been really fun watching him go out and compete just because there's so many. Last year, there's a lot of discourse about, if we draft him, he's 5'9", 182 pounds. What can he do for us? Well, he's one of the best outfielders in college baseball, and he's got 9 home runs in 8 games. Right, Coach Rooney?
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
correct. Pretty good. It's so cool because Tommy Tanks, a couple of years ago when he was a freshman, he had everybody talking about college baseball. And I remember Bill Simmons, who's a basketball guy, like obviously a big time, I don't know what you'd call him, influencer, journalist. And he's tweeting about Tommy Tanks hitting all those home runs. And it's the same exact number. Tommy Tanks hit 9 in 8 games, and Drew Burress has hit 9 in his first 8 games. And you mentioned his size. That's nuts. Yeah, really, really cool. And I could see why he didn't get drafted, but apparently that was not a wise choice.
Yeah, he's kind of doing the thing like you were saying about being at Arizona, playing this Arizona State, being at the school or playing the kids, you might not have recruited. Now he's just doing it on a national level because he's like, well, none of the scouts recruited me, so I'm just going to show literally everyone that I can mash baseballs. And he's got a really fun swing too. Like, I
Yeah.
love the way he loads with his bat like straight down and kind of corks it up, and he's like, boing, now I'm ready to hit a nuke. So good on Drew Burress for that. And then I want to shout out, I got 2 more, well, maybe 3 more, because Will Taylor from Clemson, of course, he's focusing primarily on baseball, stop playing football. He hit 3 home runs yesterday. That was a lot of fun to watch. Kind of got overshadowed by the fact that Drew hit 4, but that's still an unreal amount of numbers. We are recording this Wednesday night, and I believe it's around 8:40. And Charlie Condon currently is 3 for 3 with 3 home runs, 1 to right field, 1 to left field, 1 to center field. So we got to shout him
No
out.
way.
And then the last one I want to give you, well, I'm going to give a few quick ones. Will Gervais made his Wake Forest debut. Super fun watching him throw from the left side. He's like 6'7", but he throws from a low three or like a 3/4 arm slot. It's real funky. And then TJ McCants absolutely balling out for Alabama. Got to throw that one in there. Can't miss it. You know, he's
That's
been
a really good
absolutely
call on
going
TJ
off.
McCants. Isn't that a cool story? Like he's been through so much. He's got a national championship ring, but it was the same year that his mom passed, and he, for him to be, so he transfers from Ole Miss to Alabama, and now he's having this huge, incredible year, which is amazing. By the way, Stephen, can we talk about Charlie Condon for a second?
He's so good.
So your interview with him, I would encourage anyone listening, go back and listen to Steven's one-on-one with him. He's the most unbelievable kid. He redshirted 2 years ago. In 2022, Charlie Condon did not play college baseball. He had to watch college baseball. He goes to the Northwoods League. He grinds it out. And then, so going into tonight's game, he was 20 for 32. That's not how this works. He had 2 hits or more in every single game. So he enters tonight's game 20 for 32. And what you're telling me is he is now 23 for 35. That's not even sensible if you were playing basketball, shooting baskets, let alone hitting a baseball.
I don't understand it. And he was a member of the National Spanish Honor Society in high school, which cannot be overlooked. That's clearly playing a role here. The ball comes in and he says, "Adios la pelota." See ya. There it goes.
Fuego.
You know, Fuego.
Yes.
I'm right there with. Speaking of
Charlie
Fuego,
Condon.
my last one, I
it.
promise. Nate Snead from Tennessee hit a new personal best, 101.3 miles an hour last night, which was super fun. His previous best was 100 miles an hour at the Globe Life tournament. So this was really cool to see. Really happy for Nate Snead because I got the need for Snead and speed, and he's got both.
Oh, I love it. Yep, and there's Tennessee could use that because we're AJ Russell, who's been brilliant, but came out of last week's game a little tender. So the need for Snead, I like it. By the way, Stephen, and this will be my last thought. In this game that Charlie Condon's 3 for 3, Michigan State is beating undefeated Georgia. Are they undefeated? Maybe they're not quite undefeated, but maybe something in one. But Michigan State is beating them 19-6 right now at Georgia. So hum you, Michigan State. How about that?
Well, the good news is that means there's a lot of time for a comeback and a lot of runs to be scored. Charlie Condon. This gentleman right here, talked about him earlier, Marshall McDougal. Do it.
Do it.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I am on McDougal watch hard this year, Coach. I believe it could happen again. I don't actually. I think his record is perfectly fine.
What was it? 16 RBIs in one game or something ridiculous?
6 home runs against the University of Maryland in one game, which I don't know. This card's a professional card, so it doesn't say how many RBIs he had.
6 home runs is probably is gonna be the headliner.
I'm gonna assume at least 7.
Oh, that is amazing.
But yeah, no, I think this year we're going to see a lot of home runs. It's been super exciting. The midweeks have been a ton of fun. So, Coach Rooney, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to kind of just hop on the Schoch Factor with me and gush over what these young gentlemen have been doing.
Yes, talk about Donovan Hope, talk about Michael Rogers. It's talk about Roland Fanning and Charlie Condon, Charlie Ballgame. It's good. So, Stephen, it was a pleasure. Pleasure was all mine. I want to remind everyone that college baseball is rad. And that's it. Have a great week. Enjoy weekend 3. And we will catch you next time on the Schoch Factor podcast.
And thank